Okay, so the purpose of the respiratory system is to uh, create ATP throughout the body and bring oxygen to feed all the cells. Um, the cells use the ATP to grow, divide, repair, and carry out their tasks. So, when O2 creates ATP through glycolysis, I believe. Yeah, because there's no mitochondria in the red blood cells. CO2 is the byproduct of that. So CO2 is excreted or relieved through the body through expiration. So oxygen is brought in through inspiration, carbon dioxide leaves through expiration. So what happens is air comes in through the nares or the nostrils into the nasal cavity, and this is when you're breathing through your nose. One of the benefits to breathing through your nose is the air gets filtered, it gets moist, and it warms the air. So it helps to come in through the nose opposed to going through the mouth straight down there into the wind and the lungs and stuff, especially in the winter months. So this right here is a flap that closes, and that's what keeps stuff in the mouth into the oral cavity from coming back into the nasal cavity, and that's called the uvula. So then we have another flap right here. This is called the epiglottis, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. This space right here is called the pharynx. There's the top portion, which is the nasopharynx, the middle portion, which is the oral pharynx, and the bottom portion, which is the larynopharynx. So this will lead into, you have two tubes right here. So the anterior tube is the larynx, and the posterior tube that you can't really see behind here, that is the esophagus. So the esophagus is going to lead down into the stomach, and the larynx is going to lead into the trachea, where it's actually your windpipe. The trachea is made out of hyaline cartilage, and the larynx is actually your voice box, your windpipe. These right here are your main bronchi, and then they lead into the bronchies, or bronchioles rather, and then they turn into those small little sacs like this that are called your alveoli. This is your diaphragm. It's right under it. When it's relaxed, it's going to be more dome-shaped. When it's contracted, it's going to be flat. So this is a diagram of the epiglottis. The epiglottis is going to be what covers your larynx, because you don't want to get anything into your windpipe. So on the top right here, this is actually your epiglottis. This is going to close like that, and it's going to cover over the larynx. This little space right here, this is called your glottis. These right here are your vocal cords, vocal cords. And then the space right on both sides, this is your vocal folds. So all this is to keep things from getting out of your windpipe. So we obviously don't want that. So this is an alveoli sac. This is where we're going to get oxygen and carbon dioxide. It's going to have the gas exchange that occurs. So this is one individual sac right here, and these are capillaries that are wrapped around it. So what happens is the heart comes from the pulmonary trunk out to the pulmonary arteries, to the pulmonary atrials, to the capillaries. So this is blood flowing in, coming in here and going to get oxygenated. Right now the blood is deoxygenated, but it's going to come in here to get oxygenated. So what's going to happen is it's going to pass through on this side right here. And CO2 is in these red blood cells, and it's going to go in here, and it's going to the gradients is going to diffuse into these alveoli sacs, and the oxygen that's going to come in from in the air that's inhaled is going to diffuse into the capillary beds. So there's only one cell thick here, on the capillary beds and on the alveoli sacs. So this is simple squamous epithelial cells, and so the diffusion is really easy when this occurs. So now this oxygen that's on the other side over here, it now has oxygen, and it's going to travel back through the pulmonary venules to the pulmonary veins, then back to the heart, where it's going to go into the left atrium, and blood's going to carry out throughout the body. So when we inhale and exhale, the process of the CO2 being exhaled out of the body, this is called external respiration. Now we also have a different form of respiration that occurs, and it's called internal respiration. So this is what happens right here when the gas exchange comes from the heart down to the atrials to the capillary bed. So now this is going to be where the oxygen is actually going to feed the tissue spaces. So according to the gradients, it's going to diffuse out into the tissue spaces, into the interstitial fluid space, and the CO2 now that was floating around in the interstitial space is going to float back into the capillary bed, and this process is going to continue again and carry out. Awesome.